Hello, beautiful crafters. Let's craft some English together today. Before we begin today's story, I want to ask you something personal. Have you ever planned a trip down to the smallest detail, researched every museum, booked every restaurant, created the perfect itinerary, only to have something unexpected completely change your plans? Maybe you felt disappointed at first. Maybe you even felt frustrated that things weren't going the way you imagined. But here's what I've learned through my own travels. Sometimes the experiences we didn't plan become the memories we treasure most. Sometimes getting invited into something we never expected opens doors we didn't even know existed. Today's story takes place in Tuscany, Italy, during September, harvest season. It's about a solo traveler who booked a simple Airbnb for a cultural vacation, but accidentally arrived during a family's most sacred tradition. This isn't just a story about travel, it's a story about the moment we have to choose. Do we stick to our safe, planned itinerary, or do we say yes to an invitation that might change everything? As you listen, I want you to think about this question. What would you do if a stranger invited you to abandon your tourist plans and become part of their family tradition? Now, before the story unfolds, I want you to know today's episode is different. We're using the story weaving method, which means this won't be a passive experience. First, you'll immerse yourself in the full story. Then, we'll practice the most powerful phrases together. And yes, I want you to speak out loud with me. After that, we'll explore 8 beautiful words, not just as definitions, but as concepts that touch your heart. And finally, we'll pause together to reflect on what this story means for your own journey. 4 simple threads, woven together into something meaningful. So, take a deep breath and let's step into Tuscany together.
Have you ever wondered what happens when a simple accommodation booking accidentally connects you to a family's most treasured traditions? That's exactly what occurred during my 3-day September stay in Tuscany, a journey that transformed from a solo cultural tour into an intimate glimpse of Italian harvest life that changed my understanding of what it means to truly belong somewhere. I had been planning this Tuscan adventure for months, carefully researching the perfect balance of art, cuisine, and countryside exploration. September seemed ideal. The weather would be pleasant, the summer crowds would be thinning, and I could visit the famous museums and vineyards at a comfortable pace. I booked what appeared to be a charming rural Airbnb near the hill town of Montalcino, chosen primarily for its stunning photographs of rolling vineyards and its convenient location for day trips to Siena and Florence. The flight into Florence was smooth, and I felt sophisticated and well-prepared as I collected my rental car and drove through the gorgeous Tuscan countryside. Golden September light bathed the landscape, and everything seemed perfectly aligned with my vision of an elegant cultural immersion. I had my museum tickets pre-purchased, restaurant recommendations bookmarked, and a detailed itinerary that would maximize every precious moment of my short stay. But as I turned down the narrow gravel road leading to my accommodation, I began to notice something unexpected. Instead of the quiet retreat I had imagined, the property was bustling with activity. Cars were parked everywhere, people were carrying large baskets, and the air was filled with animated Italian voices and the sound of laughter. "Benvenuta! Welcome!" called a robust woman in her 60s, rushing toward my car with arms wide open. "You must be our guest. I am Maria, and you have arrived at the most perfect time. It is harvest day." Maria's enthusiasm was infectious, but I felt slightly confused. This wasn't the peaceful solo retreat I had envisioned. Through my limited Italian and her charming broken English, I learned that I had unknowingly booked my stay during the family's annual grape harvest, a 3-day celebration that involved cousins, neighbors, and friends from across the region. "But don't worry," Maria assured me, reading the uncertainty in my expression. You will have your beautiful room, very quiet, very private. And if you want, you can join us for the harvest. It is up to you completely. My room was indeed beautiful. A converted stone cottage with thick walls, traditional furnishings, and a view over endless vineyard rows that took my breath away. But from my window, I could see the organized chaos below. Families working together among the vines, children running between the rows, elderly grandparents sorting grapes under shady pergolas, and everyone moving with the purposeful rhythm of a tradition passed down through generations. I unpacked my bags and tried to focus on my planned itinerary. Tomorrow I would visit the museums in Siena, then return for a wine tasting at a commercial vineyard, followed by dinner at a recommended restaurant in town. It was a sensible, cultured plan that would give me exactly the Tuscan experience I had researched and prepared for. But as the afternoon progressed, the sounds and aromas from the harvest celebration below my window became increasingly irresistible. I could smell something incredible cooking, hear bursts of laughter, and occasionally catch glimpses of the family working together with such obvious joy and connection.
Around 5 o'clock, Maria appeared at my door with a glass of wine and a plate of fresh focaccia. "You must be hungry," she said simply. "Come, sit on your terrace. I bring you something to eat." As I sat on my private terrace, nibbling the most delicious bread I had ever tasted and sipping wine that tasted like sunshine, Maria began telling me about the harvest tradition. Her family had been making wine on this land for 4 generations. Every September, relatives traveled from across Italy to participate in the 3-day harvest that was part work, part celebration, part sacred ritual. "You know," she said, studying my face carefully, "most guests who stayed during harvest, they want to join. But some people, they prefer to be tourists, to watch from outside. Both are okay, but I think," she paused, smiling knowingly, "I think maybe you are not sure what you want yet." She was absolutely right. Part of me wanted to stick to my carefully planned cultural itinerary. It was safe, predictable, and would give me exactly what I had paid for. But another part of me was deeply curious about the authentic family celebration happening just below my window. That evening, I attempted to follow my original plan. I drove to Montalcino for dinner at the restaurant I had researched, ordered the recommended dishes, and tried to appreciate the refined culinary experience I had planned. The food was excellent, the service impeccable, but something felt hollow. Through the restaurant window, I could see lights twinkling at Maria's property and imagine the family gathered around long tables, sharing stories and laughter. The next morning, I woke early with the intention of leaving for my day trip to Siena. But as I carried my coffee to the terrace, I encountered Maria's teenage granddaughter, Sofia, who was picking grapes just beyond my cottage. "Buongiorno," she called cheerfully. "You are going somewhere today?" "Yes, to Siena, to see the museums and the cathedral." Sophia paused in her work, looking thoughtful. "The museums are very beautiful," she agreed. "But they will be there tomorrow and next week and next year. Today is the only day we harvest these grapes. Today is the only day this September sun touches them exactly like this." Her words stopped me completely. I had been so focused on consuming culture that I had missed the opportunity to participate in it. Would it be okay if I stayed and helped? I don't know anything about harvesting grapes. Sophia's face lit up with the most genuine smile. "Nonna Maria will be so happy. And don't worry, we will teach you everything. It is not complicated, but it is beautiful." For the next 2 days, I abandoned my itinerary completely and immersed myself in the harvest tradition. I learned to identify ripe grapes, to cut the clusters properly, and to carry the heavy baskets without spilling precious fruit. My hands became stained purple, my back ached from bending over vines, and I discovered muscles I never knew I had. But I also discovered something far more valuable.
I learned that Maria's 70-year-old father, Giuseppe, had fought in World War II and still remembered American soldiers sharing chocolate with local children. I discovered that Sophia dreamed of becoming a marine biologist, but would spend every September of her life at this harvest because family traditions create the roots that allow us to grow wings. During long lunch breaks under ancient olive trees, I listened to stories passed down through generations, tales of difficult harvests during wartime, celebrations during abundant years, and the quiet satisfaction of creating something beautiful through collective effort. These weren't stories you could find in any guidebook or museum. They were living history shared through food, wine, and the intimate trust of belonging. On my final evening, the family organized a feast using ingredients exclusively from their land: vegetables from their garden, olive oil from their trees, wine from previous harvests, and bread baked in their traditional stone oven. I sat at a long table surrounded by 3 generations of this remarkable family, along with neighbors who had become like family through decades of shared harvests. "You know," said Giuseppe, raising his glass in my direction, "many tourists come to Tuscany looking for Italy. But tonight, you didn't find Italy. Italy found you." Maria nodded in agreement. "This is the difference between visiting a place and being welcomed by it. You came as a guest, but you leave as family."
As I packed my bags the following morning, I reflected on how completely different this experience had been from what I had planned. I had intended to consume Tuscan culture as an observer, visiting museums, tasting wines, checking items off my itinerary. Instead, I had been invited to participate in the creation of culture through tradition, work, and shared celebration. The drive back to Florence Airport gave me time to process everything that had happened. I realized I had learned something profound about authentic travel experiences. The most meaningful connections often come not from what we plan to see, but from what we're brave enough to experience. Museums preserve culture, but families create it, day by day, harvest by harvest, story by story. My 3 days in Tuscany hadn't given me the cultured art tour I had originally planned. Instead, they had given me something infinitely more valuable: an understanding of how belonging is created through participation, how traditions connect us across generations, and how the most beautiful experiences often come disguised as interruptions to our carefully scheduled plans. As the plane lifted off from Florence, I looked down at the patchwork of vineyards below and smiled. Somewhere in that landscape, Maria's family was already planning next year's harvest, and I knew with absolute certainty that I would be there, not as a tourist seeking culture, but as family member coming home. The Airbnb that was supposed to be simply accommodation had become something far more precious, a doorway into the heart of what it means to belong somewhere, even if just for 3 perfect days in September.
Now let's practice some of the most powerful phrases from this story together. I want you to repeat after me, but don't just say the words, feel the emotion behind them. Let's begin. 1. I felt sophisticated and well prepared. Say this with confidence. Feel that preparation, that control you think you have. 2. Everything seemed perfectly aligned with my vision. Notice that word seemed. It suggests something is about to change. 3. I began to notice something unexpected. This is the moment everything shifts. Feel that surprise in your voice. 4. The sounds and aromas became increasingly irresistible. Let your voice show that growing temptation, that pull towards something new. 5. Part of me wanted to stick to my plan, but another part was deeply curious. This is internal conflict. Feel that tension between safety and adventure. 6. Her words stopped me completely. A moment of realization. Say this with wonder, like something just clicked in your mind. 7. I abandoned my itinerary completely. This takes courage. Say it with liberation, with freedom. 8. I immersed myself in the tradition. Feel the depth of that word, immersed, completely surrounded, absorbed. 9. You came as a guest, but you leave as family. This is the heart of the story. Say it with warmth, with acceptance, with love. 10. The most meaningful connections often come not from what we plan to see, but from what we're brave enough to experience. This is wisdom. Say it slowly, thoughtfully, like you're sharing something precious. Beautiful work. These phrases aren't just about English. They're about expressing emotions that are universal. When you speak English with emotion, you're not translating. You're truly communicating. Now let's explore 8 powerful words from this story. I'm not just going to give you definitions. I want to weave these words into your heart through connection and context. 1. Immersion. Noun. In the story, I talked about wanting cultural immersion. This word comes from Latin. It literally means to plunge into water, to be completely surrounded by something. Think about it. When you're immersed in water, it's all around you, above, below, everywhere. That's what language learning should feel like too. Not studying from outside, but being completely surrounded. Your turn. Can you think of a moment when you were completely immersed in something? Maybe a book, a project, a conversation? That feeling, that's immersion. Number 2, bustling, adjective. When I arrived at the farmhouse, it was bustling with activity. This beautiful word captures energy, movement, life happening everywhere at once. Close your eyes and imagine a busy market, a festival, a train station at rush hour. You can almost hear it, can't you? That's bustling, alive with human energy. Your turn. What's the most bustling place you've ever been? Can you see it? Can you feel that energy? Number 3, irresistible, adjective. The sounds and aromas became increasingly irresistible. When something is irresistible, you cannot resist it. Your resistance melts away. Think about the smell of your favorite food when you're hungry, or a song that makes you want to dance, or laughter that makes you smile even when you're sad. That's irresistible. It pulls you in without asking permission. Your turn. What's irresistible to you? What pulls you in without you even deciding? Number 4, authentic, adjective. I was searching for authentic Italian experiences. Authentic means real, genuine, not fake or performed for tourists. Here's the interesting thing. Authentic experiences usually can't be planned. They happen when we're brave enough to step off the tourist path and into real life. Your turn. What's the most authentic experience you've ever had while traveling or learning something new? Number 5, sacred, adjective. The harvest was described as part work, part celebration, part sacred ritual. Sacred means deeply respected, holy, precious beyond ordinary value. Sacred doesn't always mean religious. It means something treated with reverence, something that connects us to what matters most. Family traditions can be sacred. Daily rituals can be sacred. Even the way we learn can be sacred. Your turn. What's sacred to you? What do you treat with special reverence in your life? Number 6, collective, adjective. The story talks about the quiet satisfaction of creating something beautiful through collective effort. Collective means done together as a group, combining everyone's contribution. Think about the word collect inside collective. We're collecting everyone's efforts into one shared achievement. This is how families work. This is how communities work. This is how we create culture. Your turn. When have you been part of a collective effort? How did it feel to create something together? Number 7, profound, adjective. I learned something profound about authentic travel. Profound means deep, meaningful, touching the core of what matters most. Profound comes from Latin profundus, deep like the ocean. Profound insights don't just inform your mind, they transform your heart. Your turn. What's the most profound lesson you've learned in your life? The one that changed how you see everything. And number 8, transformed, verb, past tense. The story ends with how the experience transformed from a solo cultural tour into an intimate glimpse of family life. Transform means to change completely in form, nature, or appearance. Think about a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. Think about grapes becoming wine. That's transformation, not just change, but becoming something new while honoring what you were. Your turn. How has learning English transformed you? Not just your language skills, how has it changed who you are? These words aren't just vocabulary to memorize. They're tools for expressing the deep experiences of being human. When you truly understand these words, you can share your heart in English, not just your thoughts. Before we finish today, I want to leave you with one question to sit with. You don't need to answer right now. Just let it settle in your heart. Here's the question. In your own life, not just in travel, but in your daily life, in your English learning journey, in your relationships, where are you being invited to abandon your safe plan and say yes to something unexpected? Maybe there's a conversation you're avoiding because you're afraid your English isn't perfect enough. Maybe there's an opportunity to connect with someone from a different culture, but it feels scary to step outside your comfort zone. Maybe there's a way of learning English that's calling to you, but it's different from the traditional method you've always followed. What's your harvest season? What's calling you to participate instead of just observe? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Share your story. Where have you said yes to the unexpected? Or where are you being invited to say yes right now? Remember, fellow English crafters, language learning isn't about perfection. It's about connection. It's about being brave enough to join the harvest, even when your hands don't know what to do yet. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep crafting your English, one story at a time.